In the cold, sterile chamber of the Galactic Tribunal, Siok Park stood alone, his fate hanging in the balance. The Alien Council, a collection of translucent beings with razor-sharp edges and emotionless eyes, stared down at him with a mixture of contempt and curiosity. Siok was no ordinary human. At 34, he had spent years as a wilderness survival instructor and mechanical engineer, skills that had caught the attention of the Alien Confederation. But today, those skills were about to be put to the ultimate test. The lead alien, a creature named Volk, stepped forward. Its body shifted like liquid mercury, reflecting the harsh artificial light of the chamber. Human, it spoke, its voice a mechanical growl that vibrated through the room. You have been selected for a mission of utmost importance. Siok remained silent. He knew what was coming. The aliens had a reputation for sending problematic humans on what were essentially suicide missions. His file was thick with unconventional solutions and rebellious behavior during previous assignments. Volk continued, You will be transported to Corax 9, a planet that has consumed every living being that has ever attempted to survive its surface. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a nightmarish landscape of razor-sharp crystal formations, toxic atmospheric clouds, and ground that seemed to move like a living organism. The planet looked like something between a nightmare and a geological disaster. Jagged peaks rose like broken glass while toxic mists swirled in colors no human eye had ever witnessed before. The ground itself seemed to breathe, shifting and changing with an unpredictable rhythm. Your mission is simple, Volk stated, its voice devoid of emotion. Survive. If you can remain alive for 72 hours, you will be considered a statistical anomaly. Most likely, you will not return. Siok knew the real purpose behind this mission. He was a problem for the Alien Confederation. A human who had repeatedly challenged their systems, questioned their authority, and found unconventional solutions to impossible problems. This was their way of eliminating him without directly executing him. His equipment was minimal. A damaged environmental suit, a multi-tool with limited functionality, and a communication device that was more likely to fail than succeed. The aliens had ensured he was sent with the bare minimum chance of survival. As the transport preparation began, Siok reflected on his life. He had always been an outlier, the kid who could fix anything, who could survive in conditions that would break most people. Growing up in harsh mountain regions had prepared him for environments that would kill ordinary humans. The loading bay was cold and clinical. Mechanical arms moved with precise, emotionless efficiency, preparing his transport. Other alien workers moved around him, treating him like nothing more than a piece of experimental cargo. Any last words? Volk asked, more as a formality than genuine interest. Siok looked up, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. Just another day at the office, he responded. The pod sealed around him. Advanced technology blocked any potential communication, ensuring that if he did survive, the aliens could claim complete deniability. The launch sequence began, a low humming that vibrated through every molecule of his being. As the pod detached from the main ship, Siok closed his eyes. He had been in impossible situations before. Survival was not just about physical strength, but about adaptability, intelligence, and an unbreakable spirit. Corax 9 awaited, a planet that had consumed countless beings, a world that represented the ultimate challenge. And Siok Park was about to show the Alien Confederation that humanity was far more resilient than they could ever imagine. The pod hurtled through space, carrying a human who was about to write his own extraordinary story of survival. The pod crashed into Corax 9's surface with a thunderous impact that shook the surrounding crystal formations. Siok's body slammed against the interior, his training the only thing keeping him from total disorientation. Alarms blared. Warning lights flashed red and yellow, indicating multiple system failures. Toxic atmosphere began seeping through microscopic cracks in the pod's hull. Siok knew he had minutes, not hours, to escape before the environment would consume him completely. His environmental suit, already damaged from the landing, began to show signs of rapid degradation. Outside, The landscape looked like a living nightmare. Crystals grew and shifted like organic entities, changing colors from deep purple to toxic green. The ground moved with a breathing motion, creating waves of sharp rock and unstable terrain. Winds carried particles that looked like razor-sharp dust, capable of cutting through most protective materials. Siak's first breath in this environment was a calculated risk. He activated a small filtration device attached to his suit, knowing it would only work for a few minutes. The air tasted like metal and burning electricity, a sensation that made his lungs burn and his head spin. His multi-tool became his primary survival weapon. With precise movements, he began scanning the immediate environment. Temperature readings showed extreme fluctuations, from freezing cold to burning hot within minutes. Atmospheric pressure changed rapidly, creating potential death zones that could crush a human body in seconds. The crystal formations around him were not just geological structures, they seemed to have a strange biological component. Some moved slightly, almost like they were sensing his presence. Siak recognized this as a potential warning sign of complex ecosystem interactions. His survival training kicked in. He needed shelter, water, and a way to protect himself from the immediate environmental threats. The pod's remains would serve as his first base of operations. Using the metallic fragments and his limited tools, he began creating a makeshift protective structure. Every movement was calculated. One wrong step could mean instant death. The ground beneath him was not stable. Crystal formations could suddenly grow or shift, creating new obstacles or potential traps. Siak moved with the precision of a dancer, understanding that survival meant being more adaptive than the environment itself. Water was his first critical need. The atmospheric moisture looked toxic, but Siak knew there might be underground sources. Using the pod's damaged scanning equipment, he began mapping potential water collection points. His engineering background helped him improvise a filtration system using the pod's remaining components. A sudden movement caught his eye. Something large shifted in the distance, a shadow moving between crystal formations. Siak froze. Whatever was out there was big, and it was watching him. The ecosystem of Corax 9 was not just about surviving environmental conditions. There were predators here. Creatures evolved to hunt and consume anything that entered their territory. His communication device was barely functional. Occasional static suggested it might work intermittently, but Siak knew the aliens would not be monitoring his frequency. He was completely alone, a single human against an entire planet designed to kill him. Hours passed. Siak's shelter took shape, a combination of pod fragments, crystal formations, and ingenious engineering. He had created a protective space that could potentially shield him from the most immediate environmental threats. His suit continued to degrade, but he had already begun creating replacement components from the surrounding materials. As the planet's strange light began to change, creating a sunset that looked more like a chemical reaction than a natural phenomenon, Siak allowed himself a moment of calculated rest. He had survived the first critical hours. Many would have died within minutes of landing, but Siak Park was not just surviving. He was beginning to understand Corax 9, and in understanding lay the first seeds of potential mastery over this impossible world. The night was coming, and with it, new challenges that would test the limits of human survival. The night on Corax 9 was unlike anything Siak had ever experienced. Darkness wasn't just an absence of light. It was a living, breathing entity that seemed to pulse with strange energy. Crystal formations glowed with bioluminescent patterns, creating a landscape that looked more like an alien painting than a natural environment. Something was watching him. At first, Siak thought it was just paranoia, but the feeling was too precise, too calculated to be simple imagination. Movement caught his eye, a massive shape shifting between crystal formations. It wasn't hunting. It was studying him. The creature was massive, easily 3 times the size of a human. Its exoskeleton shifted colors like a living camouflage system, moving between deep purple and metallic gray. Multiple limbs moved with surprising grace, each joint suggesting an intelligence far beyond simple predatory instinct. Siak remained absolutely still. His survival training had taught him that movement could trigger predatory responses. The creature continued its observation, maintaining a careful distance. Its movements were calculated, almost scientific in their precision. Suddenly, the ground beneath Sciac began to shift. A crystal formation was growing, threatening to trap him. The massive creature moved with unexpected speed, creating a distraction that broke the growing crystal's formation. It wasn't attacking, it was protecting. Communication would be impossible, Sciac thought, but his engineering mind was already analyzing the creature's movements. Each motion seemed to carry a pattern, a language of its own. The creature's bioluminescent patterns changed with each movement, suggesting a complex communication system. Using pieces of his damaged communication device, Sciac began creating a rudimentary scanning tool. If he could understand the creature's communication patterns, he might have a chance of survival. The device was held together with wire, broken pod fragments, and pure human ingenuity. The creature watched his actions with what seemed like curiosity. It didn't approach, but it didn't retreat either. When Sciac moved, it moved. When he stopped, it stopped. Their dance was becoming a strange form of mutual observation. Hours passed. Sciac's makeshift shelter became more complex, incorporating elements that seemed to mirror the creature's own adaptive capabilities. He noticed how the creature used surrounding crystal formations for protection, how it blended with the environment in ways that defied simple biological understanding. As the planet's strange morning light began to break, the creature made its first direct approach. It wasn't an attack. It was more like an invitation. A section of crystal nearby began to shift, revealing what looked like a potential water source. The creature waited, watching Sciac's reaction. Survival on Corax 9 was becoming something more than just fighting the environment. It was about understanding, adaptation, and unexpected partnerships. Sciac realized something profound. This creature wasn't just a predator, it was a potential ally. Its actions suggested an intelligence that went beyond simple survival instincts. It had been watching him, studying him, and now it was offering something: information, protection, or perhaps something more. He decided to name the creature Garum, a name that in his mind represented strength, adaptability, and unexpected friendship. As the first full day on Corax 9 began, Sciac Park was no longer just a stranded human. He was becoming something else entirely, a potential partner to one of the most unique creatures in the known universe. The alien confederation that sent him here would never believe what was about to unfold. Garum moved closer, its bioluminescent patterns creating a complex dance of color and movement. Communication was about to begin, not through words but through something far more fundamental. Survival was changing, and Sciac was at the center of this transformation. The partnership between Sciac and Garum evolved faster than anyone could have predicted. What started as a survival strategy became something deeper, more complex. The creature, no longer just a beast but a true companion, began showing abilities that defied scientific understanding. Garum's body was more than just an exoskeleton. It was a living, breathing, technological marvel. Crystals that grew on, its body could absorb and redirect energy. Sciac discovered that these formations worked like advanced solar panels, converting the planet's harsh radiation into usable power. Using his engineering skills, Sciac began modifying his damaged equipment. Garum would bring specific crystal fragments, placing them precisely where Sciac was working. It wasn't random. The creature understood the concept of tool creation, of problem solving. Their first major breakthrough came when Sciac realized Garum could communicate through bioluminescent patterns. Each color change, each pulse of light carried specific meaning. Red meant danger, green suggested safety, pulsing blue indicated a potential resource. The makeshift shelter transformed, no longer just a survival structure. It became a hybrid living space. Garum's crystal-generating abilities combined with Sciac's engineering created walls that could heal themselves, that could adapt to environmental changes in real time. Water was no longer a problem. Garum showed Sciac underground crystal networks that filtered and purified the planet's toxic liquids. These weren't just water sources, They were complex biological filtration systems that put human technology to shame. Food became another shared challenge. Garam hunted using methods that seemed almost supernatural. It could detect prey through vibrations, could camouflage itself perfectly, and understood complex hunting strategies. Sayok learned to complement these skills, using his tools to create traps and tracking systems. The communication device Sayok had brought began to change. With Garam's help, he modified it using crystal fragments and bioorganic components. It was no longer just a communication tool. It became a living interface that could adapt to different environmental conditions. Nights on Corax 9 became training sessions. Garam would demonstrate survival techniques, and Sayok would analyze and improve them. They developed a language of movement and light, of shared understanding that went beyond simple predator-human dynamics. Sayok's body began changing too. Extended exposure to the planet's radiation, combined with Garam's unique biological properties, started altering his physical capabilities. His reflexes improved. His ability to process environmental information became more acute. The alien confederation's plan to send Sayok to his death was backfiring spectacularly. What was meant to be a suicide mission was becoming a journey of unprecedented discovery. Every day brought new technologies, new understandings of survival and adaptation. Garam was more than a pet, more than a companion. It was a partner in survival, a teacher, and potentially the key to understanding an entire planetary ecosystem that defied human comprehension. As planetary cycles passed, the line between Sayok's human technology and Garam's biological capabilities began to blur. They were creating something new, a hybrid survival system that combined the best of both their abilities. The crystal formations around their shelter began to change. They grew in patterns that suggested intelligence, in shapes that seemed to protect and support their living space. Sayok realized they were no longer just surviving. They were transforming the very environment around them. Garam would often bring strange artifacts, crystal fragments with complex internal structures, biological components that seemed to defy known scientific principles. Each discovery was a piece of a larger puzzle, a revelation about the true nature of life and survival. The alien confederation would never understand what was happening on Corax 9. They had sent a human to die, expecting a simple outcome. Instead, they had unleashed a process of transformation that would challenge everything known about survival, adaptation, and interspecies cooperation. As another planetary cycle came to an end, Sayok looked at Garam. What had started as a condemned mission was becoming something extraordinary. They were no longer just surviving. They were creating a new future. The alien confederation's retrieval ship approached Corax 9 with calculated precision. They expected to find nothing, perhaps a few scattered remains of the human they had sent to die. Instead, they were about to witness something beyond their comprehension. Sayok stood prepared. Garam moved beside him, no longer just a creature but a technological partner. Their shelter, once a makeshift survival structure, now looked like an advanced biological research station. Crystal formations surrounded them, forming a protective network that pulsed with intelligent energy. The retrieval team's initial scan produced confusion. Their sensors detected multiple advanced technological signatures, biological adaptations that didn't match any known species, and energy readings that defied scientific understanding. Something had changed on Corax 9. When the alien retrieval team landed, their shock was immediate and profound. Sayok Park stood not as a broken survivor but as a transformed being. His environmental suit had been completely replaced by a bioorganic hybrid technology that seemed to breathe and adapt in real time. Garam stood beside him, not as a pet, not as a creature, but as a partner. The massive being's exoskeleton now integrated perfectly with Sayok's modified suit, creating a symbiotic technological marvel that looked like something between a living machine and an advanced biological entity. The lead alien, Volk, the same creature who had condemned Sayok to this mission, could not process what it was seeing. Sayok had not only survived but had created something entirely new. Data collected from Corax-9 would revolutionize understanding of planetary adaptation, biological technology, and survival strategies. Sayok's communication device, now a living, crystal network, began transmitting data. It wasn't just information, it was a comprehensive record of survival, adaptation, and transformation. Every moment of his journey on Corax-9 was documented in a way that would challenge scientific understanding. The retrieval team's protocols collapsed. Their standard procedures meant nothing in the face of what Sayok and Garam had become. What was meant to be a simple recovery mission had turned into first contact with a completely new form of existence. Garam moved with Sayok, their movements synchronized. Crystals on its body generated energy, communicated complex information, and adapted to the new environment instantaneously. The creature was no longer just a biological entity, but a living, breathing technological system. Sayok carried samples, not just rocks or biological specimens, but living crystal networks that contained entire ecosystems within their structures. Each fragment was a potential technological revolution, a glimpse into a way of existence that humans had never imagined possible. The Alien Confederation's leadership would be forced to reconsider everything. Their attempt to eliminate a problematic human had backfired spectacularly. Instead of death, they had created something unprecedented, a living example of human adaptability and survival. As the retrieval ship prepared for departure, Sayok looked at the planet that had been his home. Corax-9 was no longer just a hostile environment. It was a testament to the power of adaptation, of understanding, of transformation. Garam's bioluminescent patterns told a story of survival, of partnership, of becoming something more than either of them had been before. The creature was communicating in a language that went beyond words, beyond simple biological signals. The ship's systems struggled to categorize what they were witnessing. Sayok and Garam weren't just passengers. They were a new form of existence, a hybrid of biological and technological capabilities that defied traditional understanding. As they left Corax-9's atmosphere, Sayok knew nothing would be the same. The Alien Confederation had sent him to die. Instead, he had discovered a new way of survival, of understanding, of existing. Garam pulsed with energy beside him, a partner, a friend, a living testament to the impossible becoming possible. Triumphant return was complete. Humanity had just taken its most significant step into a universe far more complex and wonderful than anyone had ever imagined.